Greetings, beloveds. This is Amy Karen Johnson, the Earth Channel, here with you with another message about not only the energy for the first week of August, but also focusing upon the 952 channel in human design, which is a type of astrology. I have spoken about this in 12 other videos within this series, so I encourage you to go back and watch any of those that you might be interested in. In addition to a chart for the week, which I will share with you, you may also look at your own chart or the chart of anyone you would like to, explore, for whom you would like to explore their chart. And you can get a free chart for yourself or them at humandesignamerica.com/chart. I am not affiliated with that site, but it's a good free one with some free sample reports if you'd like to look at those. I also am offering reports now, charts and readings basically, along with channeling, as I always do, from Gaia and her alliances, her collectives that she is associated with. And that, I believe, is actually the original source of not only astrology to begin with, but also human design. We have so much knowledge stored not only in the earth, but that came from the universe, different galaxies, different star systems, and so forth. So that is why and how I combine astrology with the channeling of messages from Gaia, Mother Earth. So if you have now paused and gotten any charts that you might want to look at to see if you have this channel defined, it is a channel that connects the root center, which is loosely equivalent to the root chakra, with the sacral center, also loosely equivalent to the sacral chakra. And the solar plexus is a bit of a mystery conundrum in human design. I personally believe it is made up of 3 different centers. There are 9 centers in human design. And if you'd like to look at my 10-part series on the centers of human design, I do have a playlist with all of those available to you on my YouTube channel. However, we will just focus today on these 2 centers in this channel. And I also want to share with you a parallel. It's not an exact parallel, but there is a really cool, perhaps loose parallel is a good way to say it, between the circuitry that this channel is a part of in human design and the nadis of Hinduism. The 952 channel is located on the right side of the body graph. You can kind of see that these charts, these body graphs show a human body, and it's as if that body was looking out at you. So if it's your own chart, or anyone's, but for your own chart, for example, the right side of the chart represents the left side of the body, and the left side of the chart represents the right side of your body. And just like most of you are probably aware, with the nervous system and the way it connects to the brain, our right side of our body, while being masculine, is connected to the left side of our brain. You've heard the saying left-brained versus right-brained. So left-brained people tend to be more logical and perhaps a bit more masculine in the way that we understand that term and associate other things that go along with that. Also associated with yang, as in yin and yang. The right side, or the left side of the body, on the other hand, literally, represents the more feminine and is associated with, connected to the right brain. And then in Hinduism, you have Pingala, which represents the channel that this 952 channel is a part of, the circuitry that it's a part of, however you want to call that. Nadi is a loosely equivalent to a stream, a channel, those kinds of things. You can see how those terms all point to a similar type of thing. So this circuitry, as human design calls it, Pingala, represents the right side of the body connected to the left side of the brain. And so those channels that go up the right side of the body then switch over at the very top where it's connected between the third eye and the crown chakra. And so it's that it flips. The other channel is a part of that circuitry at the top. The one cool, interesting thing that human design adds to this body of knowledge and this construct way of looking at things, at our bodies and our genetics and the energy that flows throughout our body, meridian is another way of looking at these, is that it also flips at the bottom. So the 952 channel is on the right side of the chart, loosely represents the left side of the body, but it's at the very bottom at our root chakra where that flips over, and so is still a part of that Pingala channel, that Pingala circuitry, that Pingala meridian. And so it's almost as if that root center represents a second awareness center, a second pressure center is the way that human design talks about it. Either way, it's a second center of intelligence of a sort and very connected with the earth in that way. Same on the other side, just to quickly go through that, the Ida, that's the other nadi, the other circuitry, goes up the left side of the body, but at the top and the bottom flips over to the right, as in the right brain at both the top and the bottom. You could almost see the bottom of our bodies being like a second brain in a way. Like I said, this isn't necessarily a direct correlation, a direct connection, not an exact parallel, but it's a really interesting way of looking at this. And then, of course, just to finish, Hinduism also speaks about the Sushumna channel. That's basically the central channel. Now, the Ida and the Pingala are also parts in human design of collective circuitry. We talked about a collective channel last week. The collective channel we spoke about last week, the 3041, I think it was, is part of the Ida circuitry, whereas this week we've got the Pingala with the 952 circuitry. And yet they are both considered collective. And so if you want to remember a bit about what collective channels are about, you can go back and read that one. You'll get a little bit more of that in a moment in this video. But then that central channel is a part of the individual circuitry, and in particular, going right up the center of the body there, the Sushumna channel is part of the knowing circuitry, as opposed to centering, and these constructs, these paradigms of looking at our bodies, at our intelligence, at our genetics, and so forth, are not necessarily perfect, but they do have a nice symmetrical sort of structure to them, and they do make sense in a way. They're helpful for helping us to understand ourselves and make the most out of ourselves, what we were born with, as well as access new and evolved aspects of ourselves and appreciate those in others as well. So I just wanted to share that with you. And then this week I'm going to begin, at least try beginning. I may go back to not doing this in the future, we'll see. But to speak specifically about the 952 channel, I basically have a poem for you. Again, I have done poetry in the past, and I just feel like this will help capture the essence better as opposed to me maybe getting a little wordier. I do have this channel defined in my chart, so it's sort of near and dear to me. It's one of the more natural channels. And just to speak briefly about the concept of compromise, which I've spoken about in most of the other videos, not all of them. When someone else has only one gate within this channel defined in their chart, red, black, or some combination of those, and the other side is white within that channel, undefined, then they will feel like their path, their process is a little bit compromised when they're around someone like me who has, in particular, this channel defined. So the way to sort of resolve that, get around it, evolve past it, is to access that energy on your own. Spend some time in meditation or contemplation and listen to this poem, which I'm actually going to chant for you, and just access that energy. You can do this anytime. You can do it by being around someone, but if that's a little too difficult for some reason, especially with this channel has to do a lot with focus, concentration. It can feel very intense, especially if you tend toward the end of the spectrum that's a little more feminine, as opposed to this channel, which actually does balance the ninth gate, also associated with the ninth hexagram in the I Ching, has a lot of yang lines, only one yin line, whereas the 52 gate has a lot more yin. So the ninth gate is associated with the taming power of the small, so you can kind of see how it focuses in on the details, whereas the 52 gate is known as the stillness, keeping with stillness, I believe. Sorry if I'm misspeaking a little bit there, but it definitely has to do, with stillness. And so it helps balance in a lot of ways, even though it's on that Pingala circuitry, the more logical circuitry having to do with the right side of the body and so forth. These two gates together do sort of help balance each other out. But together, focusing so intently on details, it's like everything else falls away. It's very intense, and if you're not used to it, if you don't have this full channel defined in your chart, it can feel uncomfortable, at least at first. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the poem, which I will chant for you, and you can understand a little bit more of the essence of this channel before we connect with Gaia and get her message directly. When the taming power of the small meets the stillness that encompasses all, a special kind of magic can occur where periphery melts and noise blurs, diving deep into the quantum silence in which we find the pixies' coherence. Universes unfold from particles, while waves of peace flow like oracles. All right, now I will invite you to connect to Gaia, Mother Earth, with me by taking a few deep breaths and closing your eyes if you would like. Hello. we would like to share with you an experience that Amy had earlier this week, which she did not speak about in the first part of this video, which helps to demonstrate the power of this channel, especially since she does have it defined in her chart, her natal chart. As she shared, it does give one an extraordinary ability to focus, especially when these two motor centers, the root and the sacral, as she has mentioned in the past, they are motor centers. They produce energy. When they are turned on, when you get a surge of energy showing you that it is there and ready for something in particular, to focus upon something. The fact that this channel connects these two motor centers shows how much energy is truly needed to focus, which some of you may have thought of before, but often focus is associated with quieting the mind, stillness, and even rest, potentially. Not necessarily energy. And yet, to truly focus in such a pinpointed way does take extraordinary energy. And yet, whenever you need it to be there, whenever you want it to be there, you can access it. So, last week, Amy was focusing upon manifesting rain because the weather had been so hot and dry. Grass was dying around her place, or at least going dormant. And so she was focusing upon her appreciation for rain in her memories from the past, in all forms of water, focusing her appreciation upon all clouds that she saw in the sky, reveling in the idea that it might rain today. And yet, days passed and rain did not come, at least not more than a few drops, which she did appreciate. She did appreciate those few drops and the cloudiness that came at first. But she started to get down on herself a little bit for not being able to manifest more rain. And then she realized that she had a bit of a feeling of guilt for trying to manifest, excuse us, throat chakra needs to be cleared around this particular topic for us, for the collective. Guilt for wanting to manifest rain in her area and worrying that it might not go where it was needed more, other places. And before she had thought of this and focused more upon there being enough rain for everyone who needs it. Sometimes people get too much rain, of course. In the arid climate where she lives, that's not usually the case. And then she remembered two things. One, that by opening to rain in her area, by allowing it to manifest, she could inspire others to manifest it and create it wherever they were, wherever they needed it. And so there was no shame, no shame in manifesting it, creating it where she was. In fact, she could be helping others by doing so. The second thing was the act of receiving. There is the creative act of your desires, your wishes, imagining, putting those ideas and feelings out there into the universe and hoping that they come back to you. And yet, you must be receptive in order to allow them to come back. Allow yourself to receive them. And that involves letting go. To open up in that way involves releasing. How can you grasp something that is coming to you? Or how can there even be room for it in your hands, metaphorically speaking, unless you let go of what was previously being held there? And so, while there are many different ways of balancing yin and yang, many different ways of expressing these different energies of all the 64 gates and hexagrams from the I Ching, many different ways of having them come together in harmonious blends. This 952 channel does do that in and of itself by taming the power of the small, the focus upon this one aspect that you wish to create, and then getting still in order to receive it. In order to fully understand it, fully incorporate it within your own being, your body. Amy has mentioned before that these 64 hexagrams are a almost perfect parallel between or to the amino acid codons. The building blocks of life. They are all needed and necessary for the creating and the allowing of all the different diverse and beautiful forms of life to come into being. And so you can choose any one of those to focus upon, even while harnessing the energy of this channel, which, though it is only 2 gates, 2 hexagrams, the 9 and the 52, does assist in diving into each and every one of the hexagrams and gates and accessing those energies. In the same way, or in a similar way at least, anytime you can access the highest expression of any one gate even, whether it's the full channel or not, and you can come to a place of love with it. If you read the body of work known as The Gene Keys by Richard Rudd, and you delve into the ideas of the shadow, the gift, and the siddhi expressions of each of those gates, each of those gene keys, whenever you reach the siddhi, the highest expression of any one of those, it can alight all of the others almost automatically. Because the highest expression always has to do with love. And really expanding, seeing the connection from one to another, and coming that much closer to embodying the source of all that is, the divine, universal love. Deep breath, let it go. Thank you so much for joining me. Namaste, beloveds. Thank you for watching, subscribing, liking, sharing, and clicking the bell button to be notified when the new weekly message comes out.